Hi guys, this is Brent from Fantasy Football Guide Live. We're just gonna get right into this week. Looking at this, we're getting into more bye weeks now. So we got people like Adrian Peterson, you got Doug Martin, Alfred Morris, Le'Veon Bell now just came back and he looks like he could be a formidable running um, substitute for somebody that maybe have an ailing running back on your roster, and he looks like a legit starter. I think that he's going to do really well going into the rest of the season. Minnesota has a pretty good run defense, and so he was able to get in the end zone twice, though he did not get many rushing yards. But I think that he's going to be a great person to go into the season, going forth through the season. But we definitely have some holes that we need to fill here. And I know a lot of people are looking for like waiver wire pickups. And some of these guys may already be gone, but somebody you might want to look at is San Diego's Danny Woodhead. He had 2 receiving touchdowns, and he's a small guy, kind of like Darren Sproles, Reggie Bush, and if you've seen some of my other streams, you'll know that I am absolutely in love with people that have that dual threat, that receiving threat from a running back that are just really small guys, really speedy, agile. Getting away from the Alfred Morris type, the Marshawn Lynch type, just the power straight through power running. Those guys can do just fine too. They're going to get their fair share of touchdowns. But I like I'm in a PPR league. I host one, and I love running backs that have that ability to explode out of. Somebody else out there, Rashad Jennings. Now, I'm mostly just saying this name because he is out there to pick up for most people in most leagues. But I am really not a fan of him. I have to say I drafted him last year actually because Maurice Jones-Drew was holding out. So you think maybe even if Jones-Drew does get signed back, maybe Rashad Jennings does well enough early on to either have a timeshare or perhaps maybe they don't sign him, and then Rashad Jennings just completely takes over the job. Well, turns out they went against Minnesota in Week 1 of last year, and Rashad Jennings ended up getting hurt right away, and so then that kind of just shut down that deal, and he just has a completely underperformed. In the last couple of years that I've watched him play, I'm just not very impressed. But he is out there. He probably will start. Darren McFadden doesn't look like he's going to be back anytime soon. I mean, anytime soon being like 2-3 weeks out. Not completely sure. There hasn't really been a good report on that, but we'll have to see. We'll have to play that one by ear. But he could at least be a nice handcuff for some people. Or if you need to fill in on some of those other people that I mentioned earlier, could be a flex play or something. LeGarrette Blount, he actually got more carries than Ridley this week or last week, and he got into the end zone. He had a 40-yard run. I think he finished with 60 some yards rushing. So obviously that 40-yard run contributed to a large portion of that, but I think Belichick was getting a little fed up with Ridley's lack of production. I wouldn't ditch Ridley. He might be a guy that you might want to stash in the back burner for now until you can see a little bit more production come out of that. But I don't know, Blunt could be a nice pickup for that. So those are 3 at least running back positions. The wide receivers, I mean, it always depends on how many people are in your league. Obviously if you're going to have 14 people in your league, which I am not a fan of, I prefer 12. 10 is fine too. 8 gets to be a little bit much because there's too many good people out there on waivers. But just depending on how many people you actually have in your league, you might have some decent pickups out there. There's like Robert Woods, did well last year. He's still a rookie. I'm still not completely sold on him because you have EJ Manuel, who is also a rookie, and I don't think that they're quite the combination that Cincinnati had when AJ Green and Andy Dalton, both rookies, being in the same atmosphere, having that chemistry. I think, but they'll get better as the years go on. But obviously, we're talking about this year, not years to come. Ryan Broyles, he didn't do so well last week. But he's still another young wide receiver. But with Nate Burleson not being healthy, not being out for who knows how long, I think Burrows will still get his fair share of balls thrown to him. I still would definitely make sure that either pick him up or hold on to him if you have him. He could be a nice trade bait later on down the road if he has a couple good games, kind of like Alshon Jeffrey that just happened, blew up this week. Kemba Tompkins, Julian Edelman's been doing really really well. I know that we're getting the stage where people are either getting fed up with some of their players, or like you said, or like I was saying before, we have the bye weeks. But like C.J. Spiller, Stephen Ridley, who else has been underperforming? You got Chris Johnson, Maurice Jones-Drew. Those guys have all been doing pretty poorly thus far in the season. And if you own them and have a player that is blowing up or having an explosion, like Kemba Tompkins or Alshon Jeffrey, if you want a little bit more consistency in your team, you could potentially try and trade both those players maybe as a package deal. You're not going to be able to do one for one because of the production that those running backs I listed are putting up, but you could maybe trade a package deal for somebody else that's doing a little bit better. I don't know that you're going to necessarily get a Jamal Charles or Adrian Peterson, or even LaShawn McCoy, but maybe you could get like a Doug Martin. He's been kind of quiet good. He actually has, I believe it's the third most rushing yards thus far in the season, and I mean that's actually pretty good. He's just not really getting into the end zone, I think, is what his issue is. Let's see if I can look here. But regardless, you could do that, or Ray Rice. I know he had the injury, but he's come back. He looks like his hip is good. I think that he's still going to be a great player going forth this season. Matt Forte might be a far stretch from that, but Arian Foster just had his first big game. So maybe people will be on that hype train and they won't want to get rid of him because they know how explosive Arian Foster can be. But those are just some names that are out there. And Doug Martin is the fourth leading rusher. DeMarco Murray, I mean, he's doing really really well. He'll be a consistent back for you if you're able to kind of snag that away from them. But yeah, it is really tough. Or this is a time to buy low on some of those people because you can't think that these guys will do poor the whole season, but how long will it take? Are you going to play them at the right time? Are you going to play them too much during their bad times and you'll lose games because of it? You don't want this to happen. So because you see the success of Reggie Bush and Frank Gore and obviously Adrian Peterson, always a stud, but it gets to be a really tough situation. People usually don't like to trade too much. They want to hold on to the people that they drafted because they drafted them for a reason. But sometimes you just got to try and pull the trigger and see what's out there. Give it some thought. Mention it to them. Most of the people are probably playing with people that you know. You can probably talk them outside of just inside the the game chat, or sending it through whatever service you're going through. But so I'm gonna go enough on that for now and go with my matchups that I usually do. I like doing the game matchups. I like I mean, most time you're going to play your studs, start your studs, they say. But I like to look at the individual matchups and see which ones are actually going to be really, really productive, and which you may want to try and sway away from. But let's go into New York Giants versus Philly. Now, both defenses have played horrific this season. So this could be another high-scoring game. And yes, Eli Manning has been absolutely awful. They can't protect him. The only person really that's doing well on that offense is Victor Cruz. Hakeem Nicks has been mediocre at best, and you don't even want to get into the running back situation because it just doesn't look very good. But I think that if there's going to be a game where Eli Manning turns it around, it's going to be this week. let's look here. Like if you're playing, if you have RG3 and let's say Eli Manning is your backup, this is the week to start Eli Manning for sure. You don't have to worry about going out in the waiver wire and picking somebody up, even though there are some good quarterbacks, which I forgot to mention. Quarterbacks. I'll get back to that later though on the pickups for them. Um, but I think Eli Manning's going to turn it around. Victor Cruz and Hakeem Nicks could both have very good games. Um, again, I would stay away from the running game. I just don't think it's very good. They were looking at getting a substitute running back, but well, and that was a couple weeks ago. But I don't know. I'm not a fan. um, and going in here, we got so Philly. Michael Vick has been outstanding. It's always a question of when's that bomb going to go off? Is he going to get injured? Will it go off? Is it going to fizzle out and he'll be just fine? We just don't know. He gets injured every single year, and I have a hard time believing that he's going to stay healthy the entire season. I don't see it. I think you could get maybe a solid 10 to 12 games out of him is like a guaranteed amount, and then going into the 14 games gets kind of sketchy. 16 games, no way. I'm not seeing it. So maybe he'll only miss 2, maybe he'll miss 4, maybe he'll miss 6. We don't know. It's just, and his injuries usually aren't serious enough to end his season, but serious enough to keep him out a couple weeks. So he'll do his thing. Little Sean McCoy, you have to start him. He's the leading rusher in the league. Chip Kelly is just loving that pistol offense, going with the quick run. He doesn't catch too many passes, so for PPR, it doesn't even matter, though. He is able to get into the end zone plenty of times. I guess only twice, it looks like. But I think he had a receiving touchdown as well 2 weeks ago. But he is just putting on a show. You got to keep on going with him. I think he's going to have a big game. And then you have Dejon Jackson. We'll see if some of the other receivers get into the game plan. Michael Vick's gonna have to spread the ball around to be able to be successful because they're not doing very well either. So we'll see what happens with that, but I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game, as most of the New York Giants and Philadelphia games have been. So look for big fantasy points to come from that. Going for Green Bay versus Detroit, so Green Bay's coming back from a bye. Jermichael Finley probably not going to be a factor. I don't think he's going to start. He's had concussion issues for the last couple of years. Has one now this year. But a healthy Jordy Nelson is always welcome in that offense. I think that he actually is the main featured wide receiver, not Cobb. Cobb is more of the diversity player. He's going to be involved in the offense very, very much. He's going to be in the rushing game. He's going to be in the receiving game. I think he returns kicks too. But Jordy Nelson is the main guy. Detroit just got done winning a shootout, so to speak, with the Bears, and I think this could be another shootout type of game. I think it's going to be more extreme. I think Green Bay is going to win the game. I don't know how handily. Not that really matters in fantasy, but I think it's going to be a very, very high-scoring game. Reggie Bush is such a diverse player. It's saying that Green Bay is one of the best rush defenses in the league. This is where that diverse running back play comes in, because you can't just look at a defense and say they have a really good rush defense, so this running back is not going to do well. No. If they can catch the ball, that's completely different. Like screen passes. Those are hard to defend against. And to defend against them all day long, even if they do catch out a couple, maybe they throw the ball out and Reggie Bush catches it and he gets -3 yards, and then they try it again a series later and then -4 yards, and then it just takes one good blocking setup for Reggie Bush to have a 60-yard touchdown run or reception from that, and that's what he brings to the table. Joique Bell is another great back. He'd be still a good flex play. I don't think that you should look elsewhere. You see Reggie Bush putting up 34 points, and you see Joique Bell putting up 6 to 10 or something. But Joique Bell could have another 20-some point game, even though Reggie Bush does well, like he did in the very first week. And you saw what he did when he was the sole starter on that team. So Reggie Bush always a risk for injury. I think that if you're in a pinch, Drake Bell is a perfect flex play. You got to go with that. Um, Looking forward, so I had mentioned Ryan Broyles. Obviously, Calvin Johnson, he's hard to stop. Green Bay has an okay defense, but in the past, they didn't really do much to improve their secondary in the offseason, and not in the draft either. I think they still pretty much got the same sort of secondary. They have a couple good corners, but like Megatron, I mean, he just is so good, and he's going to open up the game for Bush, for Bell, for Broyles, and I think that Stafford is going to do really, really well as well. Um, so look for that to be another high-scoring game. Um, this is an interesting one that I was looking at: Dallas versus Denver. Dallas has not given up a rushing touchdown this season, and I did not know that. I just happened to look it up. Um, and I look at their defense and I think that they have great player name recognition on there, and I think that they should have a better pass defense than what they do given who they've drafted in the past, but like the past couple years. But maybe they're still trying to kind of bloom and get into the rhythm. But you know, I just think that where are they? I need to look at this because I do believe on the team's passing yards. Yeah, they're still in the bottom as far as giving up amount of yards. They're in like the bottom five. And you got Denver here, who has a phenomenal defense. I think that Peyton Manning is still going to just do his thing, throw all day long. You got Wes Welker, you got Demaryius Thomas, you got Julius Thomas, and you have Eric Decker, and you can't cover all those guys. It's like impossible. Demaryius Thomas is obviously the number one receiving threat on that offense. And I think that he is a shoe-in every week, not necessarily for a touchdown, but for a couple grabs around 90 yards every week minimum. And with the potential of having a touchdown. He just got 2 last week. Eric Decker, I think, is on the bottom of that totem pole. Wes Welker is a great PPR target, always an opportunity for him to get into the end zone. And Julius Thomas, as far as tight ends are concerned, no, he's not always going to get into the end zone, but he's just a great blocker. They love having him on the field. They're going to keep him out there as much as possible. He's a young guy. He's durable. And he's going to be able to do well for that offense, and always get a couple catches, And with the amount of yards that Peyton Manning's putting up, all these guys have a chance to put up, anywhere between 60 and 75 yards minimum. It's always surprising if you see one of them get only like 20 yards, 2 catches, 23 yards or something like that. And then Dallas, hopefully they get Miles Austin back. That'll really, really help them out. I think they missed him last week. They lost a nail biter there. Like they were winning, they were just destroying San Diego, and Des Bryant had 2 touchdowns. Jason Witten was getting kind of shut down, it looked like, but he had a couple catches, and then they were trying to get that Tyrone Williams in there, and he fumbled. Just wasn't doing really well. And I know that. They are really missing that third secured target, Miles Austin. He's going to be used when he comes back. If he comes back, even if he's like 90% or better, he's going to be used. So look for him. Keep an eye out on that. I think he should be a starter, even against this tough Denver defense. Going forward and looking at San Francisco and the Houston game, I'm not going to really talk about much of those matchups, but Aaron Foster, here we go. Finally, he gets a big break. He goes in and just completely crushes it, turns on the Jets and has a big run, gets a touchdown, and just has a really, really big day. And I think that San Francisco's defense is a little overrated as far as in their entire defense being sound. I think they're great pass rushers, and I think that they're okay in the pass defense and okay in the run defense, but I don't think that they're great. I think that they're just really good at intercepting passes and rushing the quarterback. I think that and people mislead to think that equals success in them having a great defense all around. So it looks good on the fantasy stat boards, but fantasy defenses aren't always great against stopping individual players. And I think that there's a misconception that people look at there. I think Arian Foster is going to have a great day today. There's no reason why he shouldn't. I think that he finally got a taste of, finally, I was able to kind of break away, and people were worried about Ben Tate going in there and leeching too many carries, and sure he did, but Arian Foster does more with those carries. Ben Tate's a fine back. He does well when he can, but he's not Arian Foster. Arian Foster is leagues above him. And I think that he's going to have a great game this week. Just a shout out at an individual player. I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. So I had mentioned a little bit earlier that on quarterback pickups. So it was kind of funny. I was actually watching a podcast of or not watching. I was watching a show, a fantasy show, on one of the sites that I look at, and they had mentioned 3 quarterbacks that I was actually looking at that were out in my league to pick up. And before, I watched that show this morning, and I made my attempt to pick up last night. Alex Smith, Brian Hoyer, Terrell Pryor. I ended up actually. It's funny the things that they were talking about. I had Ben Roethlisberger and Carson Palmer. I was so high on Carson Palmer this year. So high. I thought, I looked at his previous years. I know that he's done really well. He just usually has a high interception count, but he usually throws a bunch of touchdowns. He always breaks 4,000 yards. And this season, he's definitely not on pace for that. He just looks absolutely horrible. And I was like, you give a 4,000 yard quarterback plus a 4,000 plus yard quarterback, and you give him Larry Fitzgerald, and what do you get? I was like, he did 4,000. I think he threw for 4,200 yards or something last year, and he has the Oakland wide receivers to deal with. Not that they're horrible, Denarius Moore and such, but they're not Larry Fitzgerald, and I drafted Carson Palmer. I drafted Larry Fitzgerald. I was so high on it, and I've been so disappointed. I dropped Carson Palmer today, or this morning when the waivers went through. And I had Big Ben. I picked him. I actually drafted him as well. I had a horrible quarterback draft. Those were my 2 starting quarterbacks, and I kind of missed. I was a little slip up that happens, and I was expecting to get somebody else, and obviously, the little swoop technique comes in. But Ben Roethlisberger didn't really do that all that well. He did okay last week, but against a terrible Minnesota defense with cornerbacks missing and such, he didn't capitalize as much as I thought he would. He had plenty yards, like 382 or 84 or something like that. But only 1 touchdown, 1 pick. 1 pick's okay, but he should have had like 3 touchdowns. But he didn't. I dropped him as well. He has the bye week. He has a couple tough matchups coming up. I'm not worried about somebody else, getting him, and I don't think that he's going to do well in these next couple weeks to come. So, Alex Smith, I did not get. I was outbid on him, which was fine. Actually, I don't even think I tried to bid on him. I wasn't too worried about it. But I got Terrell Pryor and I got Brian Hoyer. Brian Hoyer was Tom Brady's backup, and some people mentioned that. So was Matt Castle. He didn't do that well in Kansas City. He is now with Minnesota. He did pretty good last week. I don't think that he's going to get the start when after Minnesota comes off their bye. I think it's going to be Christian Ponder. That's what the coach keeps on saying. I'm not happy with that. I really would like Castle to keep on starting, and if Castle does start, then Greg Jennings and Jerome Simpson and Kyle Rudolph become formidable plays. They might not even be on people's teams. I'm almost positive that Jerome Simpson is available in probably, I would say, 60 to 80% of leagues. And Greg Jennings might be on people's teams, but definitely on the back burner, definitely on the bench. They're not even glancing at him when weeks come up to play. And Kyle Rudolph has been disappointing too. Somebody in my league actually dropped him last week, I think it was. Given where you probably drafted him as being a top, 5 to 7, somewhere around there, tight end, He has not performed to that extent, and I don't think it's his fault. I think it's the quarterback situation. But Matt Castle is going to give them the opportunity to do that once they come back. But Brian Hoyer, so I said yes, he was Tom Brady's backup, so maybe he learned a thing or two. He Watching him play, he was able to tear up Minnesota pretty good. He threw 3 picks. Last week he didn't throw any, and he had 2 touchdowns. Against Cincinnati, of all teams, they actually won that game. I did not. I don't think anybody thought that they would win that game. Cincinnati's been really tough this year. They beat Green Bay, and Green Bay has a dynamite offense. And you look at Cleveland, you're like, you trade away your best player, Trent Richardson, and you don't have a great offense at all. You have Jordan Cameron and Josh Gordon, and you have Brandon Wheaton. And but with Hoyer, they have this chance to win. This year this week they have a short week going against Buffalo. We'll see what happens. I'm not sure. I said I picked up Pryor. I picked up Hoyer. Right now, I want to start Pryor. They have a late game Sunday night. They moved the game because of the Major League Baseball playoffs. Because they share a stadium. So Oakland does with their baseball team. And so that was nice of them to move the game back, or, well, they should. It's baseball playoffs. Baseball playoffs should come before football, even though I am a football fan, through and through, and not as big of a baseball fan. But getting away from that, I think Pryor has a great chance to play well in this game that's coming up. I wanted him to play last week. I picked him up and then I had to drop him because I had looked at the day before on Friday, or it was either Friday or Saturday. I looked and they said he had passed his second round of concussion tests, and they didn't say anything about him starting. The coach never said anything about him starting, but I was like, okay, so he passed his regular concussion test. He passed a second round of concussion tests that didn't need to happen. They were going above and beyond what they wanted with that. But so that told me that he was going to start against Washington, and I was so thrilled. I was like, this is going to be a blowout. They're going to go in there and just whoop up on Washington, and Terrell Pryor's going to throw for a bunch of yards. Yeah, I think that he's a good quarterback. He's young, so he's still learning, but I think he's going to be great. And he's got the legs to move around if he needs to, too. He's one of those dual-purpose quarterbacks. But I think that he will start this week, but it's going to be tough because if he's going to be playing late Sunday night and you wait that long to start him, you don't really have much options in case he doesn't start. I mean, what are you going to pick up, Matt Flynn? I mean, sure, that would be the option to go about and do, because they're playing at San Diego, and San Diego does have a pretty bad pass defense. They were last after the week of games. I think they're fourth from the bottom in passing yards given up. And I guess it's a difficult situation. You're gonna have to monitor it. Keep watching. Like, have him on your team as a backup. To play him in place of people like like if you had Big Ben, or if you had RG3. If you gosh, I hope that you weren't starting the Tampa Bay quarterback, because their situation isn't so good over there. But you're just gonna have to look at it, basically. You don't know if he's going to start or not right now at this point, but I think that he will. And if he does, I think he's going to have a great game. But Hoyer, and that's the thing, I picked up both of them. I'll probably end up starting Hoyer just because I don't want to risk having to go through that situation there. So if you're in some type of similar situation where you have a quarterback that could play Thursday, I mean, it's really your call, but I personally would probably take that start. Now, if you're talking about EJ Manuel, I might want to risk going with Terrell Pryor in that case. But if you have Hoyer, I think that he's going to do well, and so I would go with that. And segueing into my Pika pick of the week, Pikachu sitting over there back there. I was talking to him earlier, and He's thinking that Josh Gordon is going to go off here. So if you guys are Josh Gordon owners, I think that he's going to be a mid level like wide receiver two, or a strong flex play. If you have him, I would start him. I think that he's going to do well against Buffalo. Hoyer looks like through 2 games, he looks to be pretty good. I mean, I wasn't sold on him playing against Minnesota necessarily because he had 3 picks against a bad defense. Minnesota actually has quite a bit of interceptions this season. But he played against Cincinnati and did really well. He won them the game. So if that doesn't boost your confidence in him, it's hard to say what will. Maybe you want to see another week, so you get an early look at him on Thursday. But I think that he's going to do well, and and because he's going to do well, Josh Gordon, Jordan Cameron, also going to be he's going to be a great pick this entire season. I wasn't sold on him with Brandon Wheaton, but with Hoyer at the helm, if he keeps on doing what he's doing, he could end up going and being a top 15 quarterback towards the end of the season, maybe a little bit higher, maybe getting closer to the top 10, 12, 11. But we'll see what happens. So, okay, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. I'm going to post this on YouTube. If you like it, if you like what I'm giving you, if it's helping you out, like it, subscribe. I'm going to keep on putting out videos. I enjoy doing this myself. So I guess I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching.